We all rise for a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, could we have the secretary perform roll call attendance, please? Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Here. Okay. All board members have received the minutes from the secretary from the July 19th meeting. If there's no discussion regarding the minutes, entertain a motion to approve them as written.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion being seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right. Our first item on the agenda this evening is a discussion regarding Sabia lot line realignment. Okay. Good evening. Obviously, you've received a copy of the resolution drafted by our planner.
Yes, yes, I have.
Okay. You have no
No issues,
no concerns with what's been put together?
no concerns.
Okay, so I guess at this point, it's just a matter of putting this to a vote. Get a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make it.
Second.
Okay, motion's made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so that's pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda this evening is price ground mounted 6 solar panel addition.
How's it going? How are you?
Okay, did you receive the memo from both the planner and the engineer? Oh,
Yep.
sorry.
My name is Michael. I'm just here.
Mike, your last name?
La Rosa, Larosa. And I'm just here on behalf of my company, Infinity Energy.
Okay. Okay, there's a couple of, I think, items that need to be added to the plans that have been submitted.
Yep.
Did you, again, I asked, did you receive the letter from both the planner and the engineer?
I don't think so.
I know our letter was sent to the engineer, Michael Mealy.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have an email address for you.
Okay.
Here's the planner, I don't have Keith's.
I mean, here, you can have, I mean, we didn't have any comments from an engineering standpoint. Here's our letter. Just-
Thank you.
On there, there's a note that
I don't think that's legal.
an amended site plan might be necessary. We've discussed it. It's not. But I do reference the sections of the code that pertain to ground-mounted solar.
Okay.
If you take a look at that, that will tell you, all the pieces of information that are perhaps lacking from the plan. And if
Okay.
you add those, we can verify that it conforms with those sections of the code, and
Okay.
we'll be able to move forward.
Okay. So just get those.
Yeah, that'll be in the
revisions fixed on
planner's
here. Okay.
memo. I've got the general solar section of the code and the ground-mounted section of the code, and take a look at that. We'll be
Okay.
in good shape.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, so I mean, obviously you have some things that need to be added to the plan.
Okay.
Also, you need to verify the area of the solar panels versus the square footage of the house to make sure that you're under the minimum or the maximum 50% that's allowed.
Okay.
You only allow 50% of the square footage of the home in solar panels.
Okay.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? I don't.
No.
No? Okay. Well, just adding the bulk table and, or the, sorry, the information regarding the
Right,
solar, you know, the
square
distances,
footage.
setbacks, yeah,
setbacks, things like that.
Okay.
Um,
okay. And I guess once that's all been resubmitted, then we can, you know, we can complete the process with the application.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, sounds good.
All right.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Can you bring it to us?
Next item on the agenda is Back to Health Yoga.
Good evening.
Good evening. State your name for the secretary.
Christina Roy of Back to Health Yoga, 6 Broadway Avenue in Chelsea.
Okay. All right. Okay, so obviously you submitted the information that we discussed at the last meeting, which appears to be acceptable, I guess, by the planner and both the engineer also. Correct?
Yeah, so we talked earlier about there was a letter that the town received from the Dutchess County Department of Health in regards to a potential change in use because of the yoga studio, and whether that required an engineer to evaluate your septic system. But we discussed earlier tonight that it's not really a change in use, because these would just be classes that would be during, you know, the daytime,
Yeah.
like a small, like, group.
Yeah, 4 or 5 people maximum, yeah.
Yeah, and they're not,
it's not it's not all day long.
Right.
It's just like a couple of times a week.
and they come in, they do their thing, and then they leave. It's not like they're gonna take a shower or anything
No.
like that, right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna have, like, a locker room or
No,
anything,
no,
right?
no, no.
So, I think we determined that it wasn't gonna be necessary to address the county health department letter, and I will give the engineer at the health department a call and just review it with him.
Okay.
So, and then there's not gonna be any, like, nighttime.
No, and I confirmed that in my statement of use, that it would, we would be finished by 7 PM, the latest.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, as far as any, maybe in, you know, the winter time, when it gets like dark earlier, do you have enough lights outside?
Oh, yeah, we have enough.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I mean, it's pretty minor from our end. I don't know if Malcolm had anything.
No. Okay. All right, so, I mean, as we discussed earlier, the only thing is we have to, we feel it's in best interest to hold a public hearing, to allow the neighbors to speak in case that there is, being that, you know, it's a very tight community down there. So you're near a lot of other homes or close to. So we're going to schedule a public hearing.
Okay.
And the next available date would be September the 8th.
I know we're going to Washington State right around that time. Yeah, we fly
you
it out
leave
to
that day?
Washington State on, yeah.
Okay, so when would you like to do this then? September the 20th?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine?
Yeah, it's just that 1
Okay.
week, we happen to be away.
All right, so
So September 20th?
September, all right, so we need to make, somebody needs to make motion to schedule a public hearing for September the 20th?
I'll move that. Second.
Okay, so motion's made. We have a second?
Second.
Oh, you did say, all right, sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Are we gonna have Malcolm do the resolution for that at the same time?
I think we discussed that.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
can we do that ahead of?
yeah, so we just need somebody needs to make a motion to authorize the planner to prepare.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, motion carries.
So this way, if there's not any public comment or any, like issues, then the
Yeah.
board can just like approve it that, evening. You won't, this way you won't have to come back again.
Oh, okay.
Right,
Okay, thank
yeah,
you.
that would be the last meeting, so
Yeah. Oh, okay.
assuming there's nothing that comes of the public hearing, then after we close the public hearing, we can vote on the resolution for approval on the-
Okay.
on the special use permit.
And is there anything I need to do to prepare for this? Oh,
Reach out, reach out to
Okay.
Bea and she'll give you all the information,
okay,
okay?
great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item on the agenda this evening is the Smith three-lot subdivision.
Larry?
Good, how you doing?
So just as a matter of quick introductions, Andrew, we were accustomed to seeing here, is no longer with us. Well, he's with us, he's just not employed by us. He
Clarification.
Yeah,
moved to Boston
okay.
for good reasons.
Yeah. Larry, I'd like
If
to,
you could.
let me just ask you to move to the other side of the podium so that the camera up there can pick up your, just angle it towards the
Camera.
the camera up here on the
Oh,
wall.
there.
Yeah.
Has been a while since I've been.
Yes, it has.
You got to retrain you here.
Yeah. Okay. So, we are in receipt of Malcolm's and Peter's letters. I hopefully think we're down to nuts and bolts, right? The big hurdle was the wells and the water supply. The only adversity to connecting to town water was the anticipated duration it might take to put together a water main extension. I think it's a bit more involved than most people would like to believe. So what we coordinated with the health department was, their primary concern was, as you know, the wells up and down 9 are riddled with different forms of contamination, primarily salt. We did some well tests. We did a pump test out here. We've got a good well on the property, both qualitatively and quantitatively. So we've addressed that concern with the health department, and they have conceptually advised that they'll entertain the subdivision with wells, with the provision that we provide easements for potential installation of future water line. And I think Andrew might have explained that at a prior
Yeah.
meeting. Well, I'm not sure. And there's a proposed easement along Old Hopewell that the town could utilize if they wish for installation of a water line outside of the Old Hopewell right-of-way. And there's also an easement that extends into the property that would facilitate future water service connections to that. So hopefully we're here to ask the planning board to consider a conditioned approval contingent upon health department and satisfaction of a couple of minor outstanding details. Any questions or concerns?
No, I don't have any questions. Just the easement, I guess, obviously, is just to service the two lots currently. The two new lots, if it was to be run, right?
No, I think it would do all three.
The
It
existing.
would also connect.
Well, yeah, it
This
would connect the
easement
other one too,
services,
I'm just
yes.
saying, right, just
Yes.
to access across to the other two.
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
So one item, Larry, that we talked about earlier was that we'll talk to the town board about the easement that's on the plan. You know, the town would probably be interested in taking the portion of the easement that's along Old Hopewell Road. I'm not so sure about when it makes a right turn to go like north, though, because I would think that that could just be to the individual homeowners, because they would then make the service tap down through that easement and tie into the main along Old Hopewell Road, if that's the way the town ran the main. Now, if they run the main in the future up Losey Road, obviously then they can just go out, you know, the front.
Correct.
You know, so, you know, so we'll talk to the town about the easement along the front, but I don't think that we would want to take the easement that goes to the north. That could be an easement amongst the property owners for then to tie in the future. So that's just something, I mean, we can go work that out. It's not a big deal.
And that would be my understanding as well. That easement will exclusively be to lots 2 and 3
Yes,
from lots 1 and 2.
right, because the first lot can just go tap, if the main is right along Old Hopewell,
Right.
they can tap right into it, so.
And as far as the town easement goes, I would think that there would be a way to provide an irrevocable offer of cession, so the town wouldn't have to accept it until they
Yeah,
want it.
yeah,
But it's there.
absolutely, yes.
It's there for the
Yes,
taking
we would
if
do
they
that,
want it.
yes, that's
And
correct,
that would be
yep.
part of the
Yep,
subdivision.
that's correct, yep.
Okay?
Okay. All right.
Other than that, I mean,
So then, yeah,
Barbara was,
we have the one open issue, right, with the violation that was on the property.
Has the garage been the apartment in the garage been removed?
I don't know that. All I know is that they were agreeable to making it uninhabitable. I don't know if that work's been done. Could that be a condition of approval, that we would have to demonstrate that to your satisfaction prior to the chairman signing?
I think we were trying to look to get this knocked out before we voted on the
Okay.
resolution.
Andrew and Mrs. Smith were clearly aware that it had to be removed as soon as possible,
Okay,
and a condition of getting an approval.
okay,
So if you reach out to Mrs. Smith, she calls my office. If it's done, I'll come out and inspect it.
very good. Fair enough.
Okay, so with that said, does anybody want to make a motion to authorize the planner to draft the resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like also to make a brief introduction. Joseph Laval is a new engineer with our firm. You'll be seeing his lovely face here rather than mine, hopefully. And you won't be double taking. We've actually hired his brother as well, so his brother Mike is actually working for us as well.
Okay.
No, just So gladly rising. And I will also report that son Christian had a little girl.
Congratulations.
Friday evening, so
How big is she?
yeah, little girl, flying girl.
good for you.
So the Baji family continues to grow.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
See you later.
All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda, we have Myers Run.
Hi, I'm Michelle Zerfus with Berger Engineering. And with me is Michael Lind, who's the applicant and developer. And as you know, this is a 12-lot,
Michelle, can you pull down the mic a little bit? There you go.
okay, make it shorter. This is as you know, this is a 12-lot, single-family subdivision that we've been working with the staff on. And we've moved the houses out so that they're out of the wetland buffer. We've extended driveways, so there's more backup, made them bigger than they were at Fernia. We met with the highway superintendent, who likes having swales. It's much culverts.
Okay.
And then we tried to push the houses and everything as clustered, not clustered in the sense of cluster development, but as tight as possible. Because these are all septic systems, the health department requires that each house have its own septic system on its own lot. So you can't really do what you could do if it was a subdivision that had public sewer and water, where you could put everything here and just have pipe coming in. So we tried to meet that. So we seem to have gotten down to, whittle down the list to just about everything now is, getting information from the health department and the county public works. And I guess at this time, we feel we're ready for public hearings, so that before we get too much farther, we can find out what the public says, and we can incorporate those into the plans.
Okay, we did have some discussion prior. I know there was brought up about possibly looking at a cluster subdivision, maybe to kind of maybe work it a little differently, maybe to give those properties a little bit more room in the backyards. Is that something that may have been looked at? Because the problem is with pulling the houses up, the 20 feet, problem comes into play is when somebody wants to put the swimming pool in the backyard or something else, they're gonna, unfortunately, they'll be encroaching into the wetland buffer.
Yes, we're trying to push things together and meet separations that the health department requires. For being on the same lot, it just makes it hard because you can see that these are the septic systems for each lot. You can see they're basically that's bigger than the house. And that's where you get into problems. They have to be so many feet from the house, so many feet from the property line, so many feet from water lines.
Yeah. Now let the planner speak on behalf of the layout, the current layout.
Yeah, so I guess what is it? Lots 10, 8, and 9, right there. That's our biggest concern, right? And I'm guessing that the septics are in the front yard there due to infiltration in the rear.
Right. Yeah, that's what
yeah.
we found. Usually we like to put the house in the front instead of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the soils look better, because we discussed this in these places, and these look better soils.
Mm-hmm. I guess our hope with a cluster would be that, you can maintain septic on each lot, but by eliminating certain requirements for the house in terms of front and side setbacks, that we can concentrate development, can maintain septic on each lot, and that if anything, that by pursuing a cluster, we would free up your availability to, redesign the configuration of these homes, try to concentrate development away from the wetland, because that's both the ecologically sensitive area and the poorest drained soil, right? And so that's going to be a problem for your septic.
That's what I'm trying to see, how to cluster, have these meet their requirements, have them each be on their own lot, because as soon as you said, oh, it'd be great to put 2 houses into one septic and then we can move it, what do you need special?
No, we're not talking about
Suggesting
putting,
What I'm
that,
saying is
yeah.
trying to do clusters when you don't have municipal sewer and water. Well, this has municipal water without municipal sewer. Trying to get them in there so that the houses are near each other and the separation for these and the property lines around.
If you were able to put the houses on lots 8, 9, and 10, if you're able to put those in the front yard, would you be able to keep the septic where they are or shift the septic back to where the house is currently?
Now the septic's ended up here because this is where,
It's the only place that you can infiltrate.
it's like here where we put them in the back. We usually do like them in the back. You can play on.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
In
it
this
makes
case,
sense.
people, well, they don't have a pool, but they can put like, play on it, because each one's only half actually gets
Yeah.
filled with chambers. And that's, I won't put in, you have to do the entire thing, but only
Sure.
put trenches in half.
Sure, it's just that those 3 lots then become far more encumbered than the others. And that homeowners in those 3 lots would have far fewer possibilities with their land as a result.
Right.
And so that is our hope with a hypothetical cluster, that we would be able to avoid those issues and end up with 12 lots that were more or less equal in terms of their encumbrance and their size.
Well, I think we talked about this a few meetings ago, and I don't know, I mean, without like seeing anything, it's hard to like dismiss it, but I don't know, I mean, I don't know how the board wants to go if you,
Yeah, I mean, it becomes an awkward situation there, I know, with the backyards. I mean, that seems to be the sticking point everybody's had. These houses are, how many bedroom? They're being planned for 4 bedrooms, please?
so the footprints are like large, I mean, are you anticipating just like a 1-story or?
Maybe a 2-story colonial, depends on the lot, I mean, some lots.
I mean, if you're gonna do like 2, then could you reduce, you know, the footprint and create more yard? I think the footprints are 3,000 square feet, but that's a 6, I mean,
The home might be pretty.
so you,
I mean, I will say the smaller yards, I have another subdivision in town, Poughkeepsie, I have some constraints there with the buffer, and, I have.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So I think it depends on even the purchaser. Some people don't mind not having as much, yard space, so it does,
Some people
those
don't
lots will
want
have.
yard either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah. I mean, they did pull it up 20 plus, I guess, you know.
We did. We
Yeah,
pulled
to get it up
in.
to
Yeah.
as close as you can get it.
well, and as we discussed, you know, earlier, so the plan shows for those 3 lots shows a 10-foot like encroachment into, you know, the wetland buffer, which is really up to the planning board, is that would have to be worked into the, you know, the permit, if you like agree, but to create more of a backyard, so.
Isn't there also encroachment, is there a buffer for the septic in the front?
Well, yeah, you know, you're gonna have to look at that, you're gonna have to move, you know, the septics a little bit, because you don't have the 20 feet from the house to the septic now.
Yeah, we kind of were trying to get things set here and then shift the set.
Joe and I talked about that.
So really, as far as, you know, the cluster goes, I think it's more like a board decision on whether you'd like to see something or you're satisfied with, well, maybe not satisfied, but, you know, you're generally okay with this type of layout. I mean, when we do the cluster, so you can, yeah, I'm sorry, but can you relax the how does that work? Do you relax the setbacks, or?
Well, there's 2 different cluster. We also talked about average density. That would, reduce the required size of some of these lots, and, it would potentially further the issue that we had earlier in this process, where some of the lots were far larger than some of the others. I remember we took issue with that. If they pursued an average density, some of the lots might get smaller, and that might exaggerate the issue, but it might also result in, more workable subdivision. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure which of the 3 cluster alternatives would suit this project the best. I'd be happy to look into it, though.
So in terms of, even if it was the average density type subdivision, what's provided now that would meet for the, for the basis of the number? So would this currently meet that requirement?
I don't know that would help them with their setbacks. That
So
would
if
just
it would meet,
reduce
I'm just saying though,
the
but if
size.
it's, so now if we know that it's a baseline of, what do we have, 12 lots here?
Yeah.
So is this going to be the basis of them coming back with the average density where they can get some smaller lots to help pull them away from the buffer?
That would be the hope. That would be predicated on the idea that the board finds the 12-lot subdivision suitable to move forward. And that has been a question, whether or not a standard subdivision that is based on encroachment into the wetland buffer constitutes an appropriate standard subdivision, whether or not that constitutes the accurate lot count. And that's come up with a few other subdivisions where we've considered clustered alternatives.
Yeah. I'll leave it to the board. I mean, I don't know if to the rest of the board. I mean, I don't know if you're happy with what's here. Is everybody satisfied with what's being proposed?
I'm fine with what's there right now, really. I mean, it's just the buyer's preference on what they want, you know?
The difficulty comes from the septic. The septic is the septic. It's got to
Yeah, well, the way it's set up now, everything is okay like that, but, you know, maybe somebody likes that neighborhood, you know, now they got an option of a giant backyard or not such a big backyard.
Right.
You know, it just gives options to a buyer, you know? Whether or not you personally like it, I mean, it don't matter, but I'm good with what we see.
Everybody else? So you
Yeah,
go
I'm
with
good with it.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right. So, I mean, I guess there's
So a
pretty
couple
much-
other things, I guess, Michelle, so in the, the phasing plan, we talked a couple times about because the grading on the lots, overlap the lots, that the lots will have to be graded at the time of the road construction. So in your, phasing to try to keep it under, the 5 acres, you had in there where, the contractor would do the grading for the road, and then he would only do 2 lots at a time and then stabilize them and seed them. I don't think, my opinion is that's not like realistic. I think they're gonna wanna, like get in there and do more than that. So, I mean, I don't think we'd have an issue, going over, the 5 acres. It's just, depending on how much that you're talking about, because I think it's probably a more realistic plan. We would just have to give you like permission, and then during that time, it'd just be a twice-a-week inspection instead of, once a week. So, I think you should probably talk to, I don't know if Mike's got a specific excavating contractor in mind, but I would think you'd want to go talk to them about, your sequencing. And, I mean, maybe if they're okay with it, that's fine. But I just know how the guys are when they get on the bulldozer, they just want to go, So if you could just go look at that. And then we had a suggestion on, the water service line for lots 11 and 12. It was out in the county right away. Maybe you could like consider having an easement down along the one lot. I think the county would probably prefer that, but again, if that's something you could just look at. And then this is looking a little further down, the road, but before the board would consider a seeker determination, we'd like to have something in writing, even if it's just an email for now, from the county public works in regards to the main entrance, in regards to the common driveway that you're proposing, just something that says that, we'll like entertain it, it's okay, we have to review the plans, but we need just something on a conceptual. And the same thing from the highway superintendent, even if it's just an email, like for now, that says that he's okay with the open swale concept. And then Malcolm, you mentioned something before about the common driveway and
Yeah, I've got
having
two.
to prove out, okay. So I
Yeah,
think,
2 housekeeping items was just that we still need to see demonstration of, viable access across their own frontage for lots 11 and 12. We're happy with the shared driveway, but we just need to see on the plans at a conceptual level that can work, should they choose to pursue that and get county approvals. And the other was the tree clearing window from the DEC. I didn't see that note on the plans, I might have missed it, but just make sure that it's on there.
Yes.
And those are the 2 housekeeping items, but they're minor.
Yeah, I appreciate those, are good comments.
So I guess if everything just stay the way it is, I mean, we're pretty well set with what the plan is. And guess if you guys feel comfortable, we can go for a public hearing. we can move forward.
Might as well get some comments, see if there's, concerns from the neighbors.
Right, exactly, so. So you had a motion to, well, first, what would be the next available meeting for public hearing?
September 20th? September 8th would be better. That's fine, we'll make it work.
Okay. All right, so you had a motion to schedule a public hearing for September the 8th for this project?
Motion made.
Second.
All right, motion's made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
Michelle, if you could just see, prior to the hearing, it would be good if you could get something from the county as far as the entrance, just so that, we know at the hearing that, that they're okay with the common driveway and, the main entrance, and that would be good. Because that's a big deal on Old Hopewell. Okay.
okay. The next item this evening is Ober Creek lot line realignment.
That's not gonna end well.
Oh, you guys have one? Okay, yeah, let me, I
We do have one.
can't talk at the same time.
Move it up now.
Yeah.
We bought one? Why did it sell?
Probably from somebody else who presented.
Wow, look at that, 3 legs. Very nice.
Okay.
Good evening. Kyle Ahern with the Chase & Companies. Alex Reese, the applicant, is here with me tonight. This is Lot 5 from the Ober Creek Farm subdivision, which was approved back in 2017, 15-lot subdivision. Since that time, the sewer collection system has been constructed. It's been certified. The County Water and Wastewater Authority has taken ownership of that system. The spec house on Lot 2 has been built, went on the market recently. Sounds like there's some takers there. So it's moving along. Lot 5 is right here. Also has an interested buyer, but is purchasing with the contingency that their backyard can be extended by the 50 feet. That is the subject of the application we made. That 50 feet is coming from Lot 6, which you'll remember is the lot at the center of the subdivision. It was known at the time as the agricultural lot. So it's the lot that Alex has retained ownership of and is continuing to use as part of the farm, for Ober Creek Farm. So, we looked at Lot 5, what this would do, what this extra 50 feet would do. It's outside of any sewer easements, so it has no effect on any of the sewer or water improvements for the subdivision, and it has no effect on the average density subdivision that was approved in 2017, since it's 2 lots that were part of that subdivision. So, no impacts really on the subdivision itself, and that's really it. It's the long and short of it.
All right, so, basically it's just swapping from the large parcel to lot 5,
Correct.
just to give them a little more property.
Yeah, it was previously about 1.3 acres, which is a good size property, but a lot of that was in this flag portion of the lot. So it was a good width, but it was pretty shallow front to back. So once you get your front setback in there and everything, it didn't leave them a big backyard. So this will give them, a good-sized backyard.
Just okay. So it's just basically, just more property to give the new, the potential homeowner here a little more room to move around where we want to
Exactly.
put the house.
Right.
Okay. All right. Any of the board members have any question?
No.
Regarding this? No. It's a pretty basic swap of land from one undeveloped lot to another. Do we feel we need a public hearing on this?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, so entertain a motion to waive the public hearing for this?
I'll make that.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. I guess also with it being so minor, I mean, we can go ahead and, we could authorize the planner to go ahead and draft a resolution for a future meeting for approval.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll have the planner do that. I'll just refer the attorney in terms of what do we need for legal description of the property?
Yeah,
Do
so
they need to, yeah,
we're gonna need a legal description of the property, and we're gonna need a deed for that.
okay.
So a separate legal description.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then, we're all set.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Good evening. All right,
Hey, Al.
okay.
Subdivision map with the copy of
Probably just leave that. Don't forget yours, though.
Yeah, you're gonna swap that out, weren't you? That was nice.
True, it's already done.
No, it's all right.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so our next item on this evening's agenda is discussion regarding Downy Energy liquid propane storage. This is something that I requested to be put on to the agenda this evening. We had some discussion going back to the vote that we had regarding the secret declaration that was put up in front of us.
Mr. Chairman, may I be heard, please?
Okay, and you please
My-
state your name for the
Yes,
record.
certainly. My name is Dennis Lynch. I'm proud to be here representing Downy Energy. With me tonight is John Hart. We're here specifically because the board received a letter from the fire district after a secret meeting the board had where the applicant was not allowed to be here. There's no secrets. The chairman is here. The chief is here. We have no secrets with anyone.
Let me
I
step
thought
out
I could
here a
finish
second.
first, but Chairman, go ahead.
Okay, so we did have a meeting, it wasn't a secret meeting, it was discussed to set up a meeting at a public meeting prior, because we wanted to get to the bottom of some information that was misrepresented to the board.
Misrepresented by who, may I ask?
Huh? It was by the
Misrepresented by whom?
By the architect who had represented it after at the adjourned public hearing.
And what was the misrepresentation,
It
may
was
I
the
ask?
fact that the comments that were made by Mr. Mr. Silvestri had made that 80-page document that raised a lot of
Mr.
questions.
Silvestri's right here in the
He's
audience.
Yes, I know. I asked him to be here this evening.
Right.
I asked them because I want them to put it, on the record that their answers when they had the meeting, because there was a meeting from the applicant and their professionals, they did have a meeting. It was represented back to us that everybody was satisfied at the end of that meeting. There was no town staff available to make that meeting.
You
or
were
myself.
invited. You were invited.
I know I was invited, but I couldn't
The whole
make it
board was
because I
invited.
do have another job during the day.
And I respect that.
Okay, so as well as the rest of my board members here. But what happened is that at the outcome of that meeting, it was represented back to us at the adjourned public hearing that Mr. Silvestri's comments had been addressed. And we found out after the fact that they weren't addressed, and that he wasn't satisfied, and that some of the other comments that Mr. Van Buren had brought up also didn't get addressed. So we just sat down and we discussed it with, with the people involved, with the fire district.
That was the meeting that we weren't allowed to attend, correct?
But you want to discuss it now? That's why I've asked all these people to be here this evening.
Mr. Chairman, let me just start from the beginning, if I may. I've been around New York State quite a bit. I've taught for the Federal New York State Planning Federation, New York State Bar Association, CLE. I'm an adjunct professor at Fordham Law School. I know boards, and I know boards throughout New York State. In fact, one of my students was from this area. I know this is a good board, but sometimes good boards make bad decisions. And in all due respect, whether or not you violated the open meetings law, which arguably you did not by having less than a quorum, you took evidence regarding my client's application without us being present, without us knowing what was said. And the last time there was a secret meeting, and I'm going to tell you it's a secret meeting because we were kept away from that meeting, it cost the town of Orangetown $8 million, and that was my case, Orangetown McGee. But I'm not here to talk about litigation. I'm here to try to find a way forward, if we can. And the way forward, we have Mr. Hart here to address any of the questions that came up with the letter from the fire district. And I know you're a member, and I respect that. And I know it's kind of hard when you have your chief and you have your chairman right back there. I mean, it adds pressure. And please, don't tell me it doesn't. It does. But let me just say one thing, okay? We have a way forward if you want to go forward. Mr. Hart is here not to talk about, he can talk about the letter, he can talk about Mr. Silvestri, but there's a way in which you have what's called a mounded operation. A mounded operation eliminates any single concern that anybody had articulated before. It's where basically the tanks are mounded in a way that eliminates any of the concerns that was expressed previously. Mr. Hart is here tonight to do one of two things, whatever your pleasure is. One is to address the letter, and we have no problem having Mr. Silvestri speak or having the chief and the chairman speak, although their letter, I think, speaks for itself. We can have Mr. Hart address that, or address a solution going forward, which is this mounded tank concept. And I think if you hear that mounded tank concept, I think you'll hear that we've listened to your concerns. We want a solution. We don't want to be in court. We want to be here to give you a safe presentation. And if Mr. Silvestri or the chief and the chairman want an opportunity to come and speak to you tonight or another night, as long as it's out in the open, as long as we hear each other, we have no problem with that. So if you'd like us to, maybe to expedite it because you have a busy night, you're all volunteers, you have one more case to go, we're happy to have Mr. Hart talk about this mounded concept. It won't be very long. Or we can go through the letter and talk about that too, whatever the board's pleasure is.
I mean, I'll entertain him if he wishes to speak real quick on the mounded concept.
Sure.
But that doesn't take care of all the issues, though, because I believe there was the issues besides that, besides the tank, because the issue is, obviously is the tank, trying to keep the tank cool, things like that, in case if there was a fire impinging upon it. But there's also the issue that you're at a higher elevation and that the first responders are going to be responding towards this. If it's not a fire, it could be a leak. And then they're going to have to travel through a vapor cloud to get to the facility.
Mr. Chairman, in all due respect, I don't think you know about the mounded concept. I mean, I didn't until recently, but let me just say one thing, okay? The claim that this fire district can't respond to an incident is a false narrative. You know why? Because on Route 9, where my client's property abuts, you have hazmat issues going back and forth multiple times every day. And your fire department has represented to other authorities that they can handle that. But I'm not here to argue. There'll be a day for that if we have to do it. I'd like you to listen to him, please, very briefly. He'll present what it is. We'll answer your questions. If the chief or the chairman or Mr. Silvestri has questions, we'll answer that too, if I may, with your permission, Mr. Hart.
I'll give you a couple of minutes.
I've been here before, and like he said, I don't want to make this adversarial, but I want to speak to the four main. I'm the president of Duck Harbor Energy, and I'm the retained safety trainer for Downy Energy and his propane consultant. Really quick about me, and I think I did this, so I don't want to bore the board, but 1973 I started in the industry. I've worn all sorts of hats. I've been training firemen.
Stand in front of Mike, please. Yes, sir.
I've been training firemen since the mid-'80s in New York State. I'm an adjunct instructor at Montour Falls State Fire Academy. I've trained at many of the fire departments around here. I may have met you at one of the dog and pony shows with multiple
Right.
members of the New York Propane Gas Association. Both myself and the person that wrote the fire safety analysis, which I'll get to in a second, and I'm going to go quick, our ex-chairman of the New York State Propane Gas Association Emergency Response Committee, and we had 3 responsibilities as chairman of that committee. One of those 3 responsibilities was to try and train on a 3-year basis in every county in New York that handled propane. You know, the city only allows it in limited, so what are we talking, 46 counties I think we trained in 3 years. So I've been up and down and over and out with volunteer firemen since the mid-'80s. Now, we don't do that because we're running for sainthood. We do it because we handle a hazardous material. Very safe hazardous material, but a hazardous material nonetheless. So now, moving forward, my background is in building these propane facilities. I started building them in 1973. In 1996, Congress established a checkoff fund, like, you know, the commercials with the got milk, the people on the TV with the mustache? That's the dairy industry's checkoff program. They get 1/10 of a penny or something per gallon. Well, propane in 1996 had Congress established a checkoff program for that. And it does 4 things that I'm not going to bore you with 3 of them, but the 4th one is safety. And when they do the safety, it's a twofold thing. The first thing they did is they created, and you would know, sir, I believe, a program done by Hildebrandt and Knoll called Propane Emergencies. We're now in the 3rd edition. I brought you a little electronic card if you're not familiar with it, with the whole program. That is to train firemen. We sent it out to every volunteer fire company in the United States, and we've made a commitment since the mid-'80s to train fire companies. Having said all of that, the other part of this is that they train, we're under the guides of NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, pamphlet 58, the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Code, and in that code, section 4.4, it talks about qualification of personnel. And the other thing that PERC, the Propane Education and Research Council, did is they write the training books and redo them every 3 years because the rules change every 3 years or are updated every 3 years. And I had the privilege of being the subject matter expert on 2 of their books, the rail car training book for intermodal containers and rail cars, the containers that go on the ships overseas, and then you see them on the railroad, and then you see them on a flatbed, and then they end up someplace, and the rail cars themselves, and more importantly, the bulk plant. So that's my background. I work with the engineers. I sit on the National Technology Standards and Safety Committee that helps NFPA write these rules and revisit them every 3 years. So that's my background. Now, to the letter. And I've got to do this carefully because I treasure my relationship with volunteer firemen. I love volunteer firemen. I spent my Saturdays and my nights training volunteer firemen. But the 4 points in the letter are, in some ways, a false narrative. The first point, I believe the first point said it only had 1 entrance into the plant. It has 2. You can come from the north or you can come up from the south. The reason that those entrances are there is because we got ledge on the Route 9 side, and you can go into the gas business, but you can't circumvent the laws of physics. And the propane when it escapes, when the genie gets out of the bottle, it turns from a liquid into a vapor, and the vapor is 1.5 times heavier than air, so it's gonna fall down. And that's what the chief, Bruce, sir, I don't know what to call you, but at any rate,
Chairman.
with your other hat, that's what he was referring to about the 2 ways in. But you do have high ground, and if the wind's blowing the other way, you got the low ground. Now, we had a meeting, and we're still on that first bullet point about the 2 entrances. There's a document that on April 4th, 2020, the engineer that was in charge of this project got together with a representative from the fire company, who I believe the board pointed her to, and said, you want to talk to this person, got the contact information. And they got together and they did an interview to create what's called the fire safety analysis. And in Section 8 of that fire safety analysis is all the fire stuff, which I'm going to get to in a minute.
Which also doesn't include the guidelines that are outlined in the emergency response guide for responding to hazardous falls.
Right, and I'm going to address that.
That's the bigger issue that we're talking about
We're getting to
today.
bullet point 4 there, but let me finish up on that. So right in that analysis where it says there's only one way in the analysis, it clearly says in section 4.3 that there's 2 ways in, from the north and from the south. And it's gated that way because we never want to back out. We want the hazmat to be able to drive out if it has to. So that was point 1. Point 2 on the letter, what was? Point 2. No, that's not the one. Anyway, the second point, excuse me, and Mike Francis gets a technical term, so I apologize up front. And like I said, I'm nervous and I don't like doing this. I'd much rather be teaching than talking like this. But the second point of the letter, when I find the damn thing, had to do with response time, I believe, the second bullet point. Gosh darn it. Hold on, I'm getting close. I got it. I got it. Okay, no, the first one was point of entry 1 to the site. Second one was no water size with water with the exception of the proposed 30,000 gallon tank. Well, in that section 8 of the analysis, which is formatted by NFPA in conjunction with NFPA 58, the rules for the plant, they made us do a water calculation for the 2 45,000 gallon containers. And the calculation came out to 581 gallons for the 2 containers of water per minute, plus 250 for the firemen. But the formula says to round it up to 625. So 625 plus the 250 came out to 875. When we had that informal meeting with somebody from County Hazmat and the person that wrote that letter, and I was a bartender, I was good remembering what people drank, but I don't always remember their names. But at that meeting, we addressed that. And the main concern at that meeting was twofold. Number 1, getting the water out of the tank, and we agreed that we'd put a pumping system in there. It was agreed, and we shook hands, and we thought that was it. Plus, at that meeting, I explained the redundant valving. I had a demonstration there. I went through it, and the fact that we wouldn't have to deal with the entire contents of the tank, and it could be shut off remotely, thermally, and manually, and it was a three-line fail-safe system. So that was the second point. Now, the third point was the evacuation area would include the village of Fishkill, town of Fishkill, and south town of Wappingers to the north. This area comprises shopping centers, nursing homes, water parks, and numerous hotels. In that fire safety analysis, which was done by an engineer and consulted on by your representative that was given to us, we look at certain things, and in there we look at response times and then the water that's available. So let's take the response time first. There were 7 companies listed, and with your information, the time for response was between 7 and 13 minutes. 10 minutes is an informal benchmark. Now, you add to the fact that the valving system operates remotely, manually, and thermally, and it might be shut off if there was an uncontrolled release before they even got there. But having said that, it was 7 to 13 minutes, which is adequate time. Another part in 8.4 of that same analysis said that it would take 12 minutes to set up a relay that would supply 1,000 gallons per minute of propane. And if you take that 875 gallons per minute that the analysis, the NFPA analysis presented, and you divide it by the time, you get 34 minutes of response time with that pump. So with all of that information, that addresses those. Now the last one, and this is the one that I don't want to say embarrassed with, but I'm uncomfortable about because I don't like saying this. But the last one about the evacuation of people, in this respect, is a false narrative. And what I mean by that is in the code and the Bible for emergency response, and Chief knows this, the North American Guidebook, it treats all hazmat the same, and it treats LP gas all the same. And in section guide 115 of this book, it says the evacuation, initial evacuation for public is 330 feet. 330 feet doesn't mean, oops, I won't say it, doesn't mean anything to me, but it's a football field. But common sense should always prevail. Chief knows that. So you go to the next one if you're not safe, 1,200 feet. You go to 3,300 feet, and if it's a fire, it can be up to a mile in the direction of the fire. But what I'm getting at, and this is a critical concept, and this is why it's actually a false narrative, and I'm ashamed to bring it up a little bit. This hazmat in this plant is safer than the stuff that goes up and down the 4 corridors of Route 9 every day that you take care of, Chief. The vinyl chloride, the chlorine, the anhydrous ammonia, the propane. It's the same release. The containers are the same. The only difference, outside of those fences, there's not qualified people, and it doesn't have the setbacks built into it and the safety features that are built into it, because you got to control the public on Route 9. So what I'm saying is if you can't handle what's on Route 9 and the gas stations that are going in and the other hazmat going up and down, this is a secured building with a 2-year analysis on it, with a 6-foot man-proof fence, 2 ways in and out, redundant safety features, a push-to-close that operates thermally, manually, and remotely, and 30,000 gallons of water that you could use on Route 9 if you had a problem. That's why I'm hurt. Now, I said all that. That's the letter. Here's the last part, and I appreciate you giving me this time, Chief, because I don't like talking bad about firemen or any of this stuff. I've worked hard to build a good reputation with you guys. Here's what I propose. That place has a natural slope to it. We mound the tanks on the slope. We put the internal valving that I talked about at that meeting that I thought we had everything hammered out with, and the pump in, and that way the fire chief will tell you his biggest concern is what's called the BLEVE, boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. And that's when flame impinges on the vapor space of our containers, any container. It's also what could happen to a hot water heater when somebody is a building inspector here, when somebody puts a plug in the relief valve because it's been dripping in their basement and it shoots through the sail, same thing. But when we mount that tank, the ground is an insulator. And our tanks, unlike oil and gasoline, are a
Stay in
sealed
front of the mic,
system.
he's not picking you up.
And unlike, I'm sorry, I'm not.
That's all right, just, yeah.
And unlike gasoline and oil and other systems, our tanks are a sealed system. There's no oxygen inside that container. When the liquid goes out, vapor replaces it. So we can't have a fire. You need a triangle of combustion for fire. So if we mound those tanks, we incorporate that three-prong valving system. I call it a containment system, but it's not a true containment system. It shuts first and last off automatically. And it'll be shut off the whole time that the plant's not manned, so you're not dealing with the contents of the tank. You're only dealing with the piping, which is, I haven't done the calculation personally, but I believe it's less than 5 gallons of gas. That's what I propose to do. We build the 2 tanks into the ledge there, mound them, give you the water, give you the pump, and that's the best I could do. 34 minutes, and once we, oh, by the way, once we put that mounding in, the only thing the code requires is 250 gallons a minute for the firemen. So multiply 250 gallons a minute times 30,000 and tell me. Plus, you guys would be able to use that water for anything around there. If the plumbing supply, a house, something got in trouble, you could use it for a relay. So thank you. You've been very patient.
Just to wrap up, we would like to move forward with the mounded concept. We would like to make a submission to you. We will make a copy to Mr. Silvestri. We'll make a copy to the chairman and the chief. We'd like to move forward if we could. And if you rather...
Well, at this junction, I mean, I think with there's a lot of questions. And again, a lot of the engineering and a lot of the, stuff that's being presented is being presented by industry-driven professionals.
No question.
No question. I would like to, because again, before we go any further here, because I don't want to waste anybody's time, but at the end of the day, I would like to have somebody that's a little more independent, maybe a fire protection engineer that's not entrenched in the gas industry, to sit down and evaluate, the overall on the project. Because again, this not only affects this one property, but again, this is regarding proposed text amendments that the town board is looking to pass.
Mr. Chairman, if we agree 100%, what we'd like to do...
Right, so I mean, this isn't just affecting, it's not affecting just the one parcel. This is affecting multiple parcels within the town of Wappinger, potentially. And whether or not this is, again, it's, we were kind of thrown into this, and I don't think anybody on the board realized that the secret decision, was holding up the text amendment. I know there's other issues with that also.
Well, that's another debate.
Right, that's a whole other thing, but at the same time, we didn't realize that we were looking at it. And that opened up our eyes to other issues that this is kind of, possibly going to open up things in other parts of the town.
Mr. Chairman, I hear you, and we're not trying to do anything other than what we think is right. With your permission, let us resubmit the mounded plan. We'll make sure that Mr. Silvestri has a copy, the chief and the chairman have a copy. And as for an expert, if you want to, if the board wants us to suggest one, a council wants to suggest one, we have no problem letting somebody look at this.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I think we need to look at it with, with all the options.
We agree.
With all the options and interact, not only with, with the concerns that we're having here at the board level, but interact with the fire department so that they can be felt that, that what they need to do in order to take care of the worst case scenario. That's pretty much what it comes to. The ERG, again, as Mr. Van Buren had put out there at that meeting that was brought up with Mr. Silvestri and the fire chief, actually, no, the Downies and Mr. Silvestri, they were brought up, looking at, listen, this is the emergency response guide is the Bible for the fire departments. This is what they have to go by. The fire departments have to plan on worst case scenario. And again, if they're being, guided by people within the industry saying, yes, this is okay, I think that what needs to be is somebody that's independent of the industry so that they can get a more comfortable feeling. Because when they were asked about the issues that Mr. Silvestri brought, to light, in his 80-page document that he submitted to the board, and we found that they weren't addressed 100%, that was the knee-jerk reaction that the fire district did to write this letter. And
Mr. Chairman,
I think that it needs to be, needs to be looked at by this independent engineer. Let them do the review, and then we can move forward from there. And then they could also evaluate at the same time as looking at as an option. the mounted, because again, you don't have to go through a whole design process. Let him, they can look at it as an option, in the overall, right, as in the overall aspect of the project.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the only issue we have, to be very simple, we want everything out in the open. We want to have no meetings we're not part of. We'll bring everybody into this particular planning board, but we would like a decision as promptly as possible.
Okay. I think, I mean, if we had to, I mean, if you want to look for a decision tonight, I mean, we could authorize the planner to go ahead and pause deck this in terms of secra based
Well,
upon
we're
public
not,
safety.
if you pause deck this, okay, I guarantee it will be in court tomorrow. If that's what you want to do.
Right, and I understand that.
Fine, go ahead.
I understand that where you're coming from, but
Can I
it's,
say one thing on the FSA? It's a living, breathing document, and it does address in section 9, additional protections, and mounting is one of the options. I don't want to put you on the spot, but were you able to read that? Did
you talk about the guidebook for the facility guidebook.
No,
you're talking about.
the
Which
fire
one are you?
safety analysis that was submitted,
Correct.
the FSA.
Yeah. Yeah, I did read through.
Okay.
Right. I did read through most of it that was submitted.
It's
Yep.
all addressed in here. And then the only, and they met all the benchmarks for your guidelines
Right.
and the industry according to the code, the New York State Fire and Building Code.
Right,
It's
which
all
is
met.
something, right, which is something totally separate. That's dealing
Well, then
with,
how could
yeah.
you say, I'm not
It's
arguing?
not, I know, no, I understand what you're saying. The state building code refers you to NFPA 58. The gas
it's
industry,
separated
right, the
things.
gas industry is very involved in the, in the development of the NFPA guidelines for, NFPA 58. I agree. And they do put safety features in there. And I think a lot of that too has to do with existing facilities as well as new facilities.
It's safer than the stuff that goes up and down Route 9, and that's very safe. There's a study, I think it's, don't quote me on the exact number, 2,734,000 to 1 to be a fatality in a bulk storage facility.
Right.
It's safer than flying in an airplane. And that's attributed to the analysis, the valving, the tanks are an inch thick. And you will be getting an asset for the community. It's a hydrocarbon, it's the future, it's an environmentally approved clean energy fuel, and you're gonna need it. As long as it's done right, you're gonna need it, and it's gonna be an asset to you. And I thought we were there. That's why I'm so passionate about this. I thought we had it. Because I wouldn't put my name, I'm 67. I'm doing more hunting and fishing than working now. And I wouldn't put my name on something that wasn't good. I would tell Kerry right off the bat when I first looked at the place, no, that's a loser, keep looking. And believe me, we've looked.
No, I understand that. I understand that you've looked at a lot of other places south of Wappingers, and, they didn't have anything within their zoning for it, and the town didn't, wasn't gonna go ahead and open the door, for the changes in the
Now,
zoning.
I'll give you a name, because I've kicked around a while, of a guy that I know you know and respect, that would do a good job, that also knows me, and could ask me the hard questions, Pat Rose.
No, I know Pat Rose, yep.
Because when he was on the board of town of Poughkeepsie, and there was a
Yeah, he was on
four-tank
the-
facility was put in.
Yeah, he was on the planning board when Bettini was looking to put
They
the
hired-
facility out there on Van Wagner Road.
They hired me, and for 2 years, I did the fire inspections on that plant every month.
Yep.
Just because I play it straight down the middle, because all I got is my reputation. But just on the record, if you want to get somebody that plays it straight,
Yep.
you need somebody that knows both sides of the industry.
No, and I agree. I said I need somebody that's, that's going to be given an independent judgment, as to this, and again, as to the sites also. Okay, thank you.
That's that propane.
All right, I will look at that.
And thank you very much. I hate to even have to say some of this stuff, but that last one, you got to do it anyway, chief, you know that.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah,
same.
listen, we have been looking at it, and I know it has been looked at, but again, it's the items that were brought up by the people that were in the meeting that there was no town presence at. And that's
I was
what
very
prompted.
disappointed that they weren't
That's
invited.
right.
Mr. Chairman, the town was invited to be there.
Yes, they were invited. And again, if somebody was able to make it, they would have. If not, if it was, we didn't realize the outcome of that when it was brought back to, again, to the adjourned public hearing, and we said that everybody's, items were addressed. And then in between that meeting and then when the other one, we found out otherwise.
We would just ask you to let us make a submission, have your independent person look at it, and then decide how you want to proceed. That would be our request.
The only thing I would like to do at this point, and I've spoken to the board, and I'll leave it to them to have it. I think anything, I think this needs to be, we need to have this looked at by an independent person.
We have no problem
A
with that.
third party, and if the applicant's willing to, to pay for that, then we can go from there. But I need somebody that's gonna look at this, objectively,
Well,
so that they can sit down and they can address the concerns of the fire department. They can look at the concerns, in terms of public safety, in different areas, because, again, this is gonna be a text amendment to the, to the town code, to the zoning code, to allow this, not only in this one location, but then in other locations within the town.
But in all due respect, I think your focus is on just this one location. But-
It is.
But put that
It is.
aside.
But again,
If you
right.
want me to coordinate with your attorney about, getting an escrow set up, and if you get whatever names you want, we obviously want to make sure the person is qualified. We have no problem doing that.
Well, I think before we do anything, I think that's what, at least that's my opinion, and I'll leave it up to the board if you agree with me
Mr.
or
Chairman.
not. But to,
What I hear is the applicant would like to make an amendment to their submission, which they have the right to do.
I would say supplement,
So-
but go ahead, yeah.
So if they want to do that, in the meantime, I will work with Mr. Lynch and the board to come up with who the board would like to retain, and we can talk about escrow. Obviously, pursuant to the zoning code, the board has the right to require an escrow for their consultant, so.
Happy to do that.
But just like a point, Bruce, so it seems like what you're saying, though, is that you would rather have the independent consultant for, the board before they amend the plans and make a submission to see what, our consultant has to think about.
Can I make a suggestion?
So that they don't waste.
so that they're not wasting their
Right.
time.
Yeah,
putting
we're going to
something
have
on
to give,
paper.
we're going to have to give your person what we're proposing. So, I mean, there has to be something you
Yeah,
give.
but
And they have the
before,
right to do that. I mean,
submit it,
Okay.
if you have somebody look at this, that they'll accept the plan that's been submitted because it meets all the benchmarks.
So why don't we just, all right, why don't we hold our thoughts here for a second? We'd like to go, I think we have a board member would like to go in executive session. This would be regarding legal advice. We'd like to adjourn the meeting at this point. So,
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll
a motion to
second.
go in executive session, second's made. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then out of that, who do we need in this meeting? Is it just the attorney?
yeah.
Is that what you want? Okay. All right.